Welcome to the channel. My name's Rob, and if you know me, I love sport and I love looking at different stadiums from around the world. And in today's episode, we're going to check out all of the stadiums in the top flight of Polish football. Let's check them out.
It is long overdue that I made a video on the first tier of Polish football, so get ready for some great stadiums and some atrocious pronunciations of their names. Here are the Ekstraklasa Stadiums.
What I'm going to do in this video is, because obviously I'm from England, I'm going to try and compare the top flight stadiums in Poland with an equivalent level in England, whether it's the Premier League level, Championship level or lower, and see how they sort of compare.
Stadion Cracovia Józefa Piłsudskiego. Like most of the stadiums in this league, this is a fairly new building that was constructed on the site of a very old football ground. To avoid confusion, I'll just list the year that the original stadium opened in the title card and mention when it was rebuilt. In this case, it was completed in 2010. It's a nice design. I like the asymmetrical lines of the exterior, and while the interior is conventional by comparison, this is a solid all-round stadium to start with.
I really don't think I like it. I think this is not a nice stadium at all with Cracovia. It's just, I think it's too boxy. I think that, like, even in the roof that overlaps each other like this, it just doesn't quite look right. And so, some of the stands are completely different width and dimension to the rest, and I just think it looks a little bit odd, if I'm honest. If I was gonna say what level in England this would be, certainly I don't think it would be Premier League. Now, granted, you get the odd team like Luton Town have just come up and their stadium is quite small, not a typical Premier League stadium, so you do get the odd anomaly, but I would say this is Championship at best, which is the second tier, and maybe even slightly lower, in League One or League Two. I just doesn't really make sense to me. Who designed this like this?
Arena Zabrze. The original stadium on this site was actually built when these lands were part of Germany in the 1930s, and it was actually named after a certain mustachioed Austrian fella when it first opened. It was rebuilt in 2016 and now, despite its dark beginnings, is a fantastic modern stadium. Oh, and in the aerial shots you saw, there was one stand remaining from the old stadium, but it has since become a complete bowl.
Okay, so it's not, I just want to go back to what it actually looked like. So apparently it's not like that anymore. Now, obviously it used to be a sort of a U shape. Zabrze is the team. But when it had this stand missing, I bet it was really windy. If the wind was blowing from the side without the stand, oh my God, I bet that wind just sort of went all around. But apparently it's not like that anymore. Apparently, according to the original video. Also, the original video, this guy does really, really good videos about checking out all the different stadiums and arenas and things. But I think it looks quite cool. It looks like a funny shaped donutty type stadium. It looks sort of modern but old school at the same time. So I don't mind it. I think it's not too bad. Not too bad at all. Yeah.
Stadion Miejski w Białymstoku. Białystok's original stadium was in really poor shape before this bad boy was built in 2014. The morale boost to the players and fans must have been immense. The exterior is quite interesting, in particular how you can see the bones of the stadium through these orange and white beams. It's even more colourful on the inside.
I think it looks quite cool, doesn't it? It does remind me of still having all the scaffolding up. It's got all the scaffolding still in place, holding the stadium together. There's a lot of beams and things, isn't there?
Also quite like how the double-tiered seating transitions into a single tier at the ends.
Yeah, that is cool. Oh, sorry, I forgot to say. I would say this is definitely Premier League standard. The the Arena Zabrze would definitely also be Premier League standard for sure. Definitely.
Suzuki Arena. This one was actually built on a separate site to their old stadium, which still exists. It's just down the road. Once more, it's a huge upgrade in terms of its amenities. If this stadium is a Suzuki, their old ground must be a rusty old Lada. Anyway, this ground was actually the site of a famous Polish victory. Nobody gave them a chance, but in 2009, they overcame all odds and defeated San Marino 10-0.
That's not difficult to beat San Marino. It does puzzle me when you get stadiums like this. When I looked at the Olympic Stadium in Wrocław, which has never hosted an Olympic event, but anyway, it had similar, where it had the big gap between the seating and the roof. And I just don't understand that in Poland. And look, I know Poland has hot periods, right? When I was in Wrocław in July, it was glorious. But I just think when I see roofs like that, you think of hot, warm weather, and it's allowing the air to flow through the stadium. And so it just seems a bit weird. In terms of this, I would say Championship, if to tier 2, probably more like League 1, a bigger team in League 1. It seems out of place. That's all I'm going to say. It just seems out of place with that roof. Oh.
Stadium Poznań.
Poznań.
This is a stadium like no other. Not only is the exterior one of a kind with its oddly shaped
bouncy
roof,
castle,
but the seating layout is pretty interesting as well. We've got one triple-tiered stand for some reason, and at the opposite end there is a stand that is smaller in height than the rest. I believe that one predates the rest of the stadium. The rebuild did take quite some time, but was completed in 2010.
Definitely a Premier League stadium. Let's see from the outside again. Definitely a Premier League standard stadium. It does look like a bouncy castle, doesn't it? The roof, I've never seen a stadium, I don't think, a stadium like this. You may see arenas, like tennis arenas like this, but a stadium, because it's not, the opening at the top is quite small, isn't it? It does look quite small. And it just looks like I want to have a bounce on the top of that roof. But clearly a really good quality stadium. It would definitely be up there with the Premier League. I like that. That's a solid stadium. Next up.
In 2010. Stadium Wojska Polskiego.
Legia Warsaw.
This rebuild was also completed around 2010. Unlike most of the others, they didn't entirely flatten the old stadium. They kept some of the original facade intact, which of course is a good thing. It just adds a bit of character. That's not to say that this would have been a soulless stadium otherwise. It does have a few other design quirks. But yeah, I do love it when a slither of history is incorporated into a new build of any kind.
I like it again. If you look at it, so you've got, it's right on the river. So I love stadiums that are right by the river. The roof is like fanned out. Another one that the stadium has got the roof with the gap between, so it's airy. Seems weird, but it just looks unique. It really does look unique. If you're coming from, I don't know which direction it is, but at the bottom of the image there, you're going up, which means it makes the stadium look bigger. It just looks quirky, it's different, it's interesting. So yeah, a thumbs up. And I'd probably say, yeah, Premier League stadium. Definitely. Maybe Championship, but yeah, Championship/Premier League. Oh.
Stadium Miejski ŁKS. You're looking at images of this stadium in a transition phase.
Oh.
Just before matching stands were built on the other three sides.
There we go.
And it finally became a complete bowl stadium in 2022.
Łódź.
I'm not gonna lie, I kinda liked it when it had grass hills on three sides, but of course, this is a much more practical design, both in terms of spectator comfort and atmosphere. Also, the groundsmen now have to do a little bit less mowing.
Another stadium with an opening between the seats and the roof. I don't understand. This is really puzzling me why Poland would have stadiums like this. I just don't understand it at all. But in terms of quality, it looks pretty decent. It's clearly quite modern. Yeah, Premier League maybe, but more like a top tier championship team. It's just really puzzling me why the stadiums are built like this. But no, it looks really nice. A good quality stadium. I was actually thinking the Polish stadiums were not going to be to the same standard as some of the Premier League stadiums. Hopefully, we'll see the Tarczyński Stadium. I will remember when I say it, that I went and saw when I was in Wrocław. Because that was beautiful, but I only thought it was the top few that are any good. I'm being proven wrong. Yeah, okay.
Stadium Miejski w Gliwicach. You might be wondering why we keep seeing the word miejski.
Yeah.
Well, it just means municipal. A lot of countries have venues called municipal stadium, but for whatever reason, Poland seems to be the world leader. This one was rebuilt in 2011. Oh, I should mention that a lot of these rebuilds were due to Poland being one of the hosts of Euro 2012, along with
true.
Ukraine. This is perhaps the most simplistic of the new builds that we've seen, but that's no bad thing.
See, this one I would say is League One stadium, League Two maybe. This isn't a high quality. No, that's not fair to say high quality. This stadium is not a big stadium. This is a League One or League Two quality stadium in terms of seating and how it looks. It's interesting how all of the stands are raised, and therefore you've got the stairs that are taking you up to the stands. You're not level with the pitch. That's probably a good thing, actually, because quite often if you're right on the bottom level, it's very difficult to see the other side of the pitch. So actually that's probably a plus, but probably a League One or Two stadium, not Premier League.
Stadium Miejski in Floriana Krygira. This was rebuilt in 2022, which may seem perplexing when you look at it, but actually, it looks like this now. Yeah, big difference. In fact, there's almost as much of a difference between this stadium and its predecessor as there was between the original stadium and the gravel mine that it was built on. Actually, come to think of it, the new stadium is looking more like a gravel mine, with that mostly grey colour scheme.
Yeah, that's very, the grey colour scheme is quite odd, isn't it? Surely they should have coloured it the red and blue. That's what the team is. So why is it grey? That's odd. I was a bit worried. I was thinking originally it looked a bit more like a Greek Olympic style stadium. But actually, look, it's okay. This is Championship League 2 sort of looking. I wouldn't say it's a Premier League sort of standard stadium, but it's very grey, isn't it? And once again, it's got the roof with the big gap between the stands. It's modern, it's fresh, but I want colour. I want colour here.
It's looking good. Stadion Mosur.
Radom.
I'm glad this ground has a corporate sponsor, because the entire official name for the stadium has 52 letters in it.
I've got to give it a go now. Stadion ŁKS Piłkarski im Marszałka Józefa Piłsudskiego. You'll get it. Piłsudskiego. Close enough, right?
And I just don't have that kind of lung capacity. The original stadium was built by employees of the State Arms Factory. However, it was rebuilt in 2012 by employees of a construction company, as you would expect. This is just one of 3 grounds in the league with a running track.
See, I am not a fan of running tracks around football stadiums. I am not a fan of running tracks because it means that you have to, when you're a spectator, you're further away from the actual pitch, and I do not like that. So this would not be a stadium for me. This is League 2 standard stadium. This isn't a good stadium in my opinion. Sorry, Radom, but this is a bad stadium.
Employees of a construction company, as you would expect. This is just one of 3 grounds in the league with a running track. Stadion Rakowa and Ekstraklasa. This is one of the few grounds in the league that wasn't demolished and rebuilt from scratch. Yeah, I know. But I mean, it's the second smallest stadium in the league, so there isn't really much to demolish even if they wanted to. However, it was significantly renovated recently, as you can probably tell, and I believe they are planning on expanding it further.
Well, as I said, it's one of the smallest. This stadium, I would say, if you think about Eastleigh Football Club, which is in the, well, what we used to call the conference, this is this standard. If Eastleigh may be bigger than this. So this is at least only conference standard. Conference, north, south, whatever. So Prem, Championship, League 1, League 2, 5th tier. This is at least it's colour, I suppose. At least it's the red and blue of Raków, Częstochowa. So that's all right, isn't it?
Stadion Śląski. Before Poland's national stadium was built in 2012, this acted as their national stadium.
From the outside, I'm straight away going to say I actually quite like it. It is just like a big dome, isn't it? And what are the old? What's the pipe work doing going so high like that? I don't understand, but it looks different.
Of course, it has been redeveloped since then.
Of course.
But even the current stadium has a lot to brag about. Firstly, it's the largest club stadium in the country, and it's the premier track and field stadium in Poland. Although the football fans could probably do without the track, it's still a great stadium overall.
I think this stadium does look beautiful, right? I think everyone could agree that looks beautiful. However, I don't think it's a good idea using it for football. It should not be used for football because that is a big running track around the outside. And it's not just running track. You've got the other track and field stuff. You've got the long jump, the triple jump there. And so if you're in the stands, you are so far away from the action. So for football, awful. For athletics, probably pretty good. Or if there's any other sports or concerts maybe and things like that. But for football, unfortunately, not good. Oh, but it would be Premier League size, but we wouldn't have running tracks around our... No, we would, because technically West Ham have the Olympic Stadium. So they do, but normally you wouldn't. And actually they've got, I think they put seating where the running track was, so not quite the same.
Well, it's not 52 letters, but it's close.
Mielec.
Stadion Miejskiego Ośrodku Sportu I Rekreacji w Mielcu. That's an entire sentence. Prior to a renovation 10 years ago, the stadium had a capacity of 30,000. Now it's one of the smallest in the league.
What?
But I don't think the club supporters will be complaining, because their old stadium looks very drab by comparison. I mean, they tried to make it less bleak by planting some shrubs, but it was in vain. I do like how they kept the floodlight towers though. I feel like they are befitting of a club with the word steel in their name.
Funny thing, that is quite interesting that they went from a 30,000 to, well, a lot less. But it does look nicer now, actually. Before it did look very depressing, I think is the best word. But for a football stadium, this is conference, maybe lower than conference. It's not amazing, is it?
Tarczyński Arena,
Tarczyński
Wrocław.
Arena. I'm straight away, I'm going to say, if you haven't checked out the vlogs, go to Charlie and Rob on YouTube, and you will see it's in the thumbnail, me standing there inside, and this is a beautiful stadium. This is an absolutely gorgeous stadium. We snuck in, and I was standing there. There was they were either putting up or setting up or putting away a music venue type, whatever you call it, stage, and I was standing there. This is a beautiful stadium. Really, really is nice.
This uniquely designed stadium was partially inspired by a Chinese lantern, which is particularly apparent at nighttime, for obvious reasons. In the day, it looks more like one of those big buildings that they play football in and people sit and watch. Another somewhat interesting aspect is that despite the relatively large capacity, there's just one tier of seating.
It's only one tier of seating on most of it, but it does go quite back. And the one thing I stated was it's quite steep. So actually, yes, most of it is only one tier, but it's quite steep. And therefore, even if you're at the back, you've got a really good view of the pitch.
Thankfully, it's fairly steep seating, so those in the nosebleeds aren't too far away.
Beautiful stadium.
Stadion Warta Poznań. We've seen some very impressive new builds throughout the video, but there's something charming about a ground that has been built up bit by bit over the years. I mean, look at this old school wooden stand. Beautiful. And over on the other side there's a newer but still fairly distinctive stand. So while it might have some drawbacks like restricted views, this ground has plenty of character. And termites probably.
It puzzles me how you can have a team playing this stadium one week and then going somewhere like the Tuchinski Stadium or the stadium in Poznan and whatnot the next week. It's just complete contrast. This is, yes, you're right, it's quirky because it's got the old wooden stands, the real old character and history. But this is no more than a conference stadium. And when you compare it to the others, they're just worlds apart. I do think it's nice, it's quaint, but it's worlds apart from those other big arenas and stadiums.
Stadion Miejski Widzewa. During construction works in 2017, they actually found a munition from World War II in the ground. So potentially hundreds of thousands of people over the years had been unknowingly walking right over the top of it. But I guess that's not uncommon in these parts. On that bombshell, this stadium was built. Well, they got rid of it, I'm sure. As you saw, the exterior features a nice blend of brick, glass, steel and concrete. I also appreciate the seating layout, which is a little more complex than just a single-tiered bowl.
I think it reminds me a little bit of St Mary's, my team Southampton. I think St Mary's is a little bit bigger, but the style of it looks quite similar. I don't think there's anything special about it because I don't think St Mary's has anything special about it. I think it's just a standard, he says about it being slightly different shapes and stuff, but I don't think it massively is. It's not amazing. It's pretty basic. Championship. Probably a championship, yeah. Maybe League One.
Stadion Zagłębia Lubin. This was rebuilt in 2009. The club has an interesting colour scheme that is reflected on the stadium's exterior. Green and orange is a bit of a no-no when it comes to fashion,
There's their
presumably
colours.
because it looks like a carrot. And yeah, it does look a little bit jarring. And so they have wisely omitted the green from the interior and have gone for orange and black, which is a bit easier on the eyes, despite the myth that carrots help you see in the dark.
It's okay. It's once again very similar to the last stadium. It's very simple. It's quite concrete. Yeah, probably Premier League, but probably more like a championship team. It's just a bit boring. That sounds quite rude, but it's just quite boring.
Eyes, despite the myth that carrots help you see in the dark.
Yeah. And that's that. It's just interesting because I don't think certain other countries, in the Premier League, you've got to you've got to have your stadium to set standards to actually be allowed to play in the Premier League. And that's the same throughout all the tiers, from the lower tiers and even up. You've got to have certain standards of your stadium to be able to play in that league. So what you actually find now is where you've had lots of teams like Coventry, for example, and whatnot, that have been in the Premier League, they have reached those targets to make their stadiums good enough. But then when they get relegated, they've then got a huge stadium or a really decent stadium that then is in the Championship or League One or League Two. So it's almost the more teams that get promoted to the Premier League, the more teams are getting bigger and better stadiums. Now, I don't know if that's the same in other countries, for example, Poland, because clearly there are some ginormous, beautiful stadiums. Then there are Sunday League stadiums, a real contrast. But Poland really does have some awesome stadiums, and I might have to try and visit some more, preferably on match days. Thank you so much for watching. Please do like and subscribe. Like I said, go to Charlie and Rob or charlieandrob.com to check out our vlogs from Poland, and you can see me getting into the Tuchinski Stadium and having a look for myself. Thank you so much. Like, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.